Okay, think about this for a second. The human brain, right? Probably the most complex thing we know. And trying to see what's going on deep inside. Well, without invasive stuff, it's always been a huge challenge. So today, we're doing a deep dive into something really pretty mind-bending. It's new research out of the University of Glasgow, reported by Science Alert just recently, June 22nd, 2025. And get this, scientists have managed to shine light all the way through a human head for the first time.
Yeah, it sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's real, and that's our mission today, to unpack what this actually means. How does this new technique work? How does it build on what we already have? Like, where do you improve things? And also, what are the limitations right now? Because there definitely are some. But crucially, what's the potential down the road? We'll get into some really fascinating aha moments about how light even behaves inside your skull.
Okay, let's get into it then. Prepare for some genuinely surprising stuff about looking inside our own heads. Right, so maybe we should start with the current picture. What do we actually have now for, portable brain monitoring? Stuff that isn't a giant hospital machine. I think many listeners might know about FNIRS. Functional near-infrared spectroscopy. That's kind of the best portable, lower-cost option we've had, right?
That's generally true, yeah. It's valued because it is relatively accessible, portable.
But there's always a but.
There's always a but. And the big one for FNIRS is depth. It really only penetrates a few centimeters.
Yep.
Useful for the outer layers, the cortex, but not much deeper.
So if you want to see what's happening further in,
Well, that's where you hit the wall with standard FNIRs. You've needed the big, expensive machines. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, which are amazing, don't get me wrong, but they're bulky, costly. You need a special facility.
right, not exactly something you can carry around or use easily in different settings.
Exactly. And that creates this technology gap, as the researchers themselves call it. It's a really good term for it. They actually put it quite well in the paper, they said. Optical modalities for non-invasive imaging of the human brain hold promise to fill the technology gap between cheap and portable devices, such as electroencephalography, and expensive high-resolution instruments, such as functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI.
Okay, so optical modalities meaning using light.
Yeah.
Like FNIRs.
Yeah.
And EEG is measuring electrical activity, also fairly portable, but different info.
Right. So they're basically saying, look, light-based methods could bridge this gap between the simple portable stuff and the big, powerful, but expensive stuff. They're setting up the problem they want to solve.
And solve it they did, or at least took a massive step. So this University of Glasgow team, they made some tweaks to FNIRs. How on earth did they manage to get light through the whole head? Through bone, tissue, neurons, all that complexity.
Well, it wasn't just one simple tweak. It was a couple of really key modifications. First, they significantly increased the power of the near-infrared laser they were using.
Whoa, okay. Was that safe?
Yes, absolutely. That's crucial. They were very careful to keep it well within established safety limits for biological tissue. So more power, but still safe.
Okay, good. What else?
Second, they developed a much more let's call it a comprehensive collection setup. They needed a way to detect the incredibly faint light that actually made it all the way through to the other side.
Because it sounds like not much light actually completed the journey, the article said.
Very, very little. They described it as only a small trickle of photons made it from one side of the head to the other.
Just a trickle. That sounds almost like failure, but I guess not.
No, not at all. That trickle was the breakthrough. It was, as you said earlier, the first time they'd definitively shown it could be done. It was that proof of concept, that promising start, like seeing that tiny light across the valley.
Right, okay. It proved the principle.
Exactly. And the researchers really saw the potential. They stated, these findings uncover the potential to extend non-invasive light based on brain imaging technologies to the tomography of critical biomarkers deep in the adult human head.
Okay, let's break that down. Tomography, that's like creating 3D images, right? Slices.
Yeah, building up a 3D picture. And critical biomarkers are just signals, signs of what's happening biologically, maybe signs of disease or injury or just normal function deep inside.
So they're saying this opens the door to using light to map stuff happening way deeper than before.
Precisely. That's the core potential here.
Okay, but hang on. Just because you get some light through, how do you know where it went? How do you know it actually traveled through the deep parts and didn't just, I don't know, skirt around the edges? How did they validate this?
Now that's where it gets really, really interesting and kind of unexpected. They used computer models, but these were incredibly detailed models based on 3D scans of human heads. These models predicted how photons, particles of light, should travel through all those different layers, bone, fluid, brain tissue.
And did the predictions match what they actually measured?
They matched remarkably well. The pattern of light that collected on the other side lined up beautifully with what the computer models predicted for light traveling through the deeper structures. That gave them confidence they were really seeing what they thought they were seeing.
That's pretty clever validation.
But here's the truly surprising bit. The light didn't just scatter randomly inside the head, which is what you might intuitively expect, right? All that complex stuff in there.
Yeah, I'd assume it would just bounce around all over the place.
Well, it seems it doesn't, or at least not entirely. It actually followed preferred pathways. It tended to travel through areas that were more transparent to the near-infrared light.
More transparent parts. But
Like the spaces filled with cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, that clear fluid bathing the brain and spinal cord. It seems the light found these clearer channels, almost like little highways through the brain.
wow. Okay, that is unexpected. Light highways in the brain. So it's not random scatter?
Not completely random, no. And that discovery is huge. Because if light follows predictable paths,
Then you could potentially target specific regions better. You know where the highways are, so to speak.
exactly, you've got it. It means you could potentially position the light source and the detectors more strategically. The researchers said it themselves. Different source positions on the head can then selectively isolate and probe deep regions of the brain.
So you aim the light down a known highway to get a better look at a specific deep area. That makes the whole idea much more practical, potentially.
Much more practical and potentially much more informative down the line.
Okay, this sounds incredibly promising, but let's be realistic. The source mentioned caveats. What were the catches in this specific study? The limitations.
Right, important to cover those. This was very much a proof of concept study, foundational work. And it wasn't easy. They only reported success with one participant out of 8 they tried.
Only one. Okay, that's
Right, so-
specific. Yeah.
And the participant was described as a man with fair skin and no hair on his head, which suggests things like skin pigmentation and hair might be obstacles they need to overcome.
Right, things that could absorb or scatter the light before it even gets deep. What else?
The setup itself was pretty specific, not something you could just do anywhere yet. And the scan took quite a while, about 30 minutes for this one successful participant.
30 minutes is a long time to stay still for a brain scan.
It is. And the researchers acknowledged all this. They were upfront that they basically sacrificed things like speed and making it work for everyone just to prove that the fundamental idea getting light all the way through using this kind of tech was even possible.
Okay, so step 1. Prove it's possible, even if it's slow, and only works on one specific person for now. Step 2 will be making it faster, more robust, work for more people.
That's the roadmap, essentially. It really highlights that this is the very beginning, laying the groundwork.
But even with these early limitations, the reason this is exciting is because it builds on FNIRS, right?
Yeah.
And you said FNIRS is inherently...
Relatively inexpensive and compact. Compared to MRI, definitely. That's the long-term appeal.
Yeah.
If you can refine this deep penetration technique based on FNIRS technology,
Then maybe someday you could have portable, cheaper devices that can see deep into the brain.
exactly. Imagine more accessible scans for things like stroke detection, monitoring recovery from brain injuries, maybe even spotting tumors earlier or in more settings. It could potentially bring advanced brain imaging to far more people.
And it's not just about those critical medical conditions, is it? Thinking bigger picture, brain scans are valuable for so much. Understanding development in kids and teens, tracking aging, researching neurological diseases.
Oh, absolutely. The value across the lifespan is tremendous. If you could make deep brain insights more accessible, the applications could be incredibly broad.
So let's try and wrap this up. What's the main takeaway for you, for our listeners? What does this Glasgow research really signify?
I think the core thing is breaking that depth barrier non-invasively with light. It shows that the previous limitations of portable optical methods, only seeing the surface, might not be fundamental limits after all. There's a way through.
We found a path, even if it's just a tiny trickle of light for now.
Precisely. And while, you won't be getting this exact scan at your doctor's office next week, practical, fast applications are likely still a while away. As the article says, this research is that vital first step. It's the foundation needed to maybe, possibly, build those future devices.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. If, and it's still an if, but if we eventually get to a point where we have real-time, deep brain insights from a device that's portable, maybe even relatively inexpensive, how could that change things? Think about our approach to mental health or neurological conditions. or even just understanding consciousness, learning, emotion on a daily basis. What new aha moments could shining this kind of light deep into our brains actually reveal about ourselves?
It really opens up some profound possibilities, doesn't it?
Definitely something to think about. Okay, think about this for a second. The human brain, right? Probably the most complex thing we know. And